Hello and welcome back to the Earth to Marissa podcast, where we have real conversations with spiritual leaders for collective expansion. Today we have a really fun guest. We are going to be diving into Akashic records, angelic channeling, psychotherapy, reparenting ourselves, and all the good things. Sam Franklin is an intuitive life coach and psychotherapist who blends spiritual insight and guidance with down-to-earth support to help people reclaim their truth. In therapy practice, Sam focuses on helping people heal from religious and spiritual abuse and supports those exploring gender, sexuality, and the coming out process. In the coaching space, Sam works with people who have felt othered, who have felt they have hidden parts of themselves, or people who have struggled to take up space. They especially enjoy supporting fellow intuitives and sensitive souls, which me and hopefully you who are listening. Sam guides others to reconnect with their inner truth, find their voice, and to embrace their full, authentic selves. Through one-on-one coaching, group programs, and intuitive readings, they create a space where people can feel seen, safe, and supported in becoming who they truly are. Welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Yeah.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah. Let people know where they can find you first and foremost
hmm
and what you bring. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on all the social media stuff. So if you want to check out basically who I am and what I do, like I put so much out there on, kind of social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that stuff. And maybe this will come up. I'm located in Minnesota, so it'll come into play with like self-care and stuff like that. How being in a colder climate in the winter impacts our mental health. So,
Yes, I know the winter blues definitely affected me this year. Living in the Midwest, it's a lot sometimes for people,
yeah.
including myself. Yeah. And we actually met through TikTok,
hmm
which I love. Social media has light. It,
Yeah.
it is a good thing sometimes. And it's awesome. Yeah, when I was looking into just who you are and what you put out into the world, I was like, oh my gosh, so many similar synchronicities with the Akashic records and the channeling and the type of content that we create.
hmm
But before we dive into all of that, what is your affirmation that you've been working with this week?
This has kind of been something I've been working with for maybe the last few years of I am worthy and I am good enough just as I am, like in
Mm.
basically every point in moment in time. The past, even though I've done things that maybe I'm not proud of or I carry guilt and shame around that I'm working through, even right now I'm not perfect and I'm always growing into the future. Like every single moment in time, I'm worthy and I'm good enough just as I am.
I love that. I love that because me and my friend, we often say like nothing is perfect, yet we are perfect exactly how we are.
hmm
And that is it's just very resonant and it's nice to embody. I feel like that really helps you to embody the I am
hmm
in every moment when you can say and show up, hey, no, I'm worthy even if I've got all this stuff going on. Like we're multifaceted beings.
It is hard to really own, and there's like a lot of layers to it, but it really is true that we don't need to like prove ourselves or achievements or who accepts us. We are worthy just for existing.
And what has helped you to kind of like strip away those layers on days where it feels hard to actually believe that? What do you do in those moments to embody this affirmation?
Yeah, that's a good question because there are definitely days and maybe also experiences of like being on social media, like being visible.
Mm, totally.
That really, and when so many things is like based on like how many likes you get or how many followers you have, it can really feel hard to really stay in the truth of like I'm worthy no matter who checks out my content or this comment that someone posted. I think back to a situation where I had posted something very vulnerable about gender on my social media account and I'd gotten some really harsh comments. And so that was really like a really hard day and week to kind of embody that truth. And so what I did during that time was I reached out to people that I know like love and support me and are safe people to kind of lift me up. I follow certain people on social media that really I resonate with. So like they say things that are really affirmative, and so I can remind myself that I have worth just for who I am. And then I talk to like younger parts of myself because those are the parts that usually get triggered on those days. And so I might do things that that younger part needs, like lay on the couch with like a blanket or watch my favorite movie
Yeah.
from my childhood, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's part of that reparenting, which yeah, we'll get into. Um, yeah, people can be very, I mean, just wicked on social media. And I've had a few comments like that too, but I'm very grateful that I haven't had anything that's like really struck me. But all in all, like, I just have to remember, this is just someone that has forgotten who they are, has forgotten love, has forgotten where they come from. And, but it can be very, very triggering and also, detrimental to your worth when you are showing up as your most vulnerable self. And maybe we can talk about that later on of like when you do put yourself online like that as a content creator, the like boundaries that you can set with those energies that come forward through that creation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But what self-care are you working with this week?
So going for walks because in Minnesota in the winters, it's so easy to stay inside because it's cold, it gets dark, pretty quickly. And so as it's gotten warmer lately, I was noticing in April I was like really, really busy and it wasn't the best weather month still. We still had some snow and things like that. And I was finding that like for days I just like wouldn't leave the house. And it was like taking a toll on my mental health. So then one
Oh,
week, like a few
absolutely.
weeks ago, I decided like I'm gonna go for a walk every single day no matter what. And there was a day that it was like a little bit rainy and I was like, I'm gonna do it anyways. And it really changed
Mm-hmm.
things, even if it's just like 10 minutes, like around the block or something like that. And I live near a lake and that makes a whole difference. Like sometimes I'll just walk to the lake and back just to be in nature. And that changes so much just to take in your surroundings, especially when you stare at a screen all day. It just drains, like, really
Totally.
actually drains your energy, especially like your third eye. And so just looking at nature is really peaceful. So I've been trying to do that more.
That makes, yes, all the difference. I mean, just being with the Schumann resonance, it will completely change the frequency that you're vibrating on. And yeah, the presence aspect of that, I absolutely love that and did that the other day as well. I saw this beautiful, do you know what flower columbine, like wild columbine?
Mm-mm.
It's a beautiful and very galactic looking flower. If you don't know, go Google it right now. But I found this like huge. I'm gonna post a picture on Instagram, so you'll
Okay.
see it eventually. This huge columbine and just the presence. I like found it, and it's just you come into the state of like wonder and awe sometimes when you are just interacting with nature, even when it is like a rainy day. It's still so beautiful, and it does help you to see that like worth in everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like everything, no matter what label we've thrown on it, it gets to be beautiful. And I just like was in awe of this, and I sat with it. I like had to sit right next to it and just stare at it for like a good 10 minutes. And so that's what I did. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, nature is
Hmm.
so healing and it can teach us so many things. Like there's been a number of times where I've like felt lost or I've felt like an emotion I'm trying to process and I go in nature and then somehow kind of intuitively even too, just like something comes through and I walk away. I'm like, okay. Like nothing in my life's changed, but like I feel different.
Mm, yes, yes. Yeah, no, it's crazy what a tree can do, what the earth can do. Like
Hmm.
I like that you said that nothing has changed, but you're looking at it differently,
Hmm.
just through that different lens and through that different aspect. So I want to dive into really what got you interested in psychology in the first place, and then how that helped you spark your own healing journey.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a little bit of a winding road. So I'll do my
Hmm.
best to, keep it short. But basically, when I was younger, like my mom always said I had a sixth sense about people. Like I could just kind of know maybe who to trust or I could read people. I didn't really understand what she meant by that, but she always was like, trust your instinct on people. And then I considered actually being a lawyer because I felt like I was really good at debating and, you
Mm.
know, really breaking down concepts and like having conversations. And I took a law class in high school and I was like, this is awful. And so I was like, so what am I
Yeah,
gonna do? Like, this is what I thought I was gonna do. And
that's
this
hilarious.
is like, I'm just reading text and interpreting law, and that's awful.
Yeah.
My soul was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And so
It
then
takes a specific person, that's for sure.
it really does. And so my mom was like, well, what about psychology? You know, you're good with people, like you're a good listener, people come to you. Like, and that's true. Like my friends kind of since I was younger, always just kind of confided in me. And so I took a psych class and I was like, this is actually really interesting. And so then I was like, well, maybe I'll just major in it and just see where we go. And
Yeah.
I always really loved all the classes. But then when I got done with college, I was like, well, so what do I do with this? Because like you have to continue education. I'm like, do I want to keep
Hmm.
going? And I ended up taking a year to do like a long-term volunteer work out east.
No
And
way.
I worked with families and I was like, you know what? I don't want to just like give them resources or give them rides. Like I really want to like go deeper and help them change their dynamics and help them like look at things differently and interact differently. And I loved relationships. So that's what led me to marriage and family therapy. But then always was like trying to find like what's missing because it never felt like this is the thing. This is the thing that I love. And through all of this, like I've done my own healing work, you know, my own therapy, grad school, I say was like the most expensive therapy process that I ever went through. You really get to know
That's
yourself.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in a spiritual crisis at some point in my career, that's when I got learned about the Akashic records and all the spiritual stuff. And I was like, this is it. This is like what I want to do for healing, like other people, but also just changed my world in terms of who I am. And I've like really grown so much the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to take it to this moment that you had of discerning, like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like the only thing. Because I feel like a lot of people have that. And that's that feeling, I guess you could define as feeling lost. Like, yes, I kind of enjoy doing this. Sure, I'm good at it, but like, it doesn't feel right. Could you dive into just how to notice that and then what where following maybe your intuition, how that guided you, and you were able to actually discern, okay, this is like for real, and I need to kind of figure out something else.
Yeah, there was just like a lot of restlessness. Like, and like you said, you kind of named a lot of things. Like, I felt like I was good at what I did. I love helping people, and there was parts that I really loved about my job. But it was just like I tried different environments, working with different clients, just so many different things. And it was just like when I'd wake up in the morning, there was just something that's kind of sat heavy on my chest of like, I know I like what I do, but something feels missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've learned is like that was my soul just kind of like, I don't say slowly dying, but just kind of like losing its light, you know, like it wasn't really lighting up and things like that. And so when I went through this like spiritual crisis and like where I was like, I think I'm just not going to be a therapist anymore. But like, what do I do? I spent all this time, all this
Yeah.
money, and I had this like real crisis moment of like, that feels dumb to walk away. But then I did an Akashic record session around this, and it really
Mm.
validated the feeling of like when I know my soul's in alignment and when it's not. And there is something of like that feels expansive, that feels like I'm really passionate, that like even if it's work or even if I'm not getting paid for it, I want to do it. I'm excited for it. I wake up, I look forward to it. It really is a different feeling than almost like when it's not in alignment. It's like I'm going through the motions and I'm just like doing what I should do.
Yes, absolutely. I like that breakdown. And was this Akashic Records reading with someone else, or was it you doing it for yourself?
It was my first ever reading with someone else and kind of what got me into that work.
Okay. What drew you to that? Because I feel like, specifically in my experience, and I've heard from others, people see it and then it like really pulls them in. And it does have a way of, I feel like, really magnetizing the people that will benefit most from it or that have the ability of doing it themselves.
Yeah, and I don't know if you also experience this, but like sometimes it's almost like people kind of orbit like you or someone else that they might go to for reading for a while before they kind of like say yes. It's almost like they're curious and they kind of like think about it, and then they finally do that. And that's something that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, she's now my mentor, Amber Meyer. I work a lot with her and I help out with her academy, but I saw her at this like wellness fair that I happened by chance to go to because I was at a Reiki appointment, and right outside that building, they had this wellness fair going on. And so I walked around and I saw her sign. It was like, "What's your soul purpose?" or, feeling lost. And I was like, yes, I kind of need to know this. Yeah. I was like, I want to know the answer to this. But I was like, I don't want to do it. I like chickened out. But I took down her information and I went home, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like, I feel like I just have to book this
Right.
session. I don't know this person. She's a stranger. It's an investment, but I was like, I just have to do it. And when I finally had the session, I was like, oh, it was so worth it. And it wasn't like I walked away being like, I didn't know any of this, but it validated something on such a deeper level that I just had so much clarity afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that really is how the Akashic works. Like, yes, it might say something that you already feel or that you might already know, but it's more so like this, like, soul resonance that occurs.
Mhm.
It like feels like for your soul that puzzle piece kind of clicks in,
Mhm.
and then you become that new version of self, or with this
Mhm.
like newfound awareness, just more clarity.
Yeah, in therapy, we call like processing work either top down or bottom up processing. So, top down is like talk therapy, like you learn insights and you learn things, and then you kind of try to bring it down to a deeper awareness. They only go so far. And then people usually need bottom up, which is like more being in your body, regulating. It's things like EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. It's things like somatic experiencing, so that you're shifting something in the
Okay.
body, and then it brings like a cognitive awareness. And I feel like the Akashic Records and angel healing is a bottom up, but it's almost like a soul up process because it
Yeah.
goes so much deeper than just your body. It's like on the deepest
Yeah.
level you can go. And when you heal on that
Mhm.
level, it heals all the other levels, emotional, mental, physical. So it really cuts in there.
Yeah. And do you resonate with the term like quantum healing? You feel it quantumly heals? Do you speak with that verbiage?
I don't use that kind of language, but I really kind of, and this is like kind of the image that's coming into my mind right now when I like think about that, is like almost when we heal the soul at this point in time, it just like reverberates out, and it like can heal
Yeah, ripples.
ancestral line, right? It can heal the going forward, it heals your other lives, right? Like that idea that it just like ripples out into so many different things. And that's just, it's hard to do kind of in traditional Western healing modalities all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Have you found yourself at all getting, I don't want to use like frustrated between like I guess the science aspect and having this spiritual awareness too? I mean, they can live together. They can work together, and I think when they do, it's even more powerful. But have you found yourself frustrated at the limits of the science realm, and wishing you could lean more on the spiritual in those sessions?
Yeah, what's hard is that the way that we've set up the healthcare system in America is it's so much based on insurance standards, which means that it needs to be evidence-based and scientific based. The problem with that is like spirituality is, the other word that we use is faith. Like you can't prove everything. So it's not going to be fully science-based or evidence-based, although there's people out there doing that. And it just feels like when I'm only doing scientific kind of traditional therapy, it feels like it falls flat. Like it's missing this like other piece of it, of like the magic behind it, things that you can't explain, things that like your soul knows, but like maybe you can't do a research project on it. And it's just like
Yeah.
it's missing an important piece.
Mm-hmm. And how do you incorporate some of these spiritual newfound knowings and practices into the sessions where you do kind of have to keep it evidence based? I'm sure you've kind of merged the two a little bit as much as you can with that insurance aspect.
Yeah, it is something that it's like ongoing, and I'm trying to figure out like what that looks like. And I've been told by my mentor in like a reading that potentially I could bridge that gap in kind of the field. And I've been meeting with other people that are also trying to bridge that gap, but it's hard. What I'm learning is like I've always kind of taken intuitive messages in sessions. I just didn't realize I was doing it. And so now I'm like more aware of it, and I'm trying to just like be open to whatever intuitive messages come through to help guide me in the session of like what question to ask, or maybe what could be an issue here that maybe they're not necessarily naming, but it's in the room. And what is hard is like, and what separates it from coaching is like I'm not channeling, and like sometimes I've had to
Mm-hmm.
stop. Once I've been doing coaching for a while, sometimes I catch myself in a therapy session almost wanting to be like, so the message that's coming through, or like what I'm sensing or what I'm hearing, and then I'm like, oh, I can't do that here, like that's not what we've agreed to. So then I have to stop, and then in my head I'm like, okay, how do I translate this in a way that feels conducive to therapy?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that translation is really good because it helps them to maybe practice this modality or this methodology, but like through a more digestible modern language, where yeah, we aren't talking about ethereal energies and like all of the, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of woo-woo terms that with this translation you're helping them to actually connect with something deeper and at a deeper level in a more spiritual lens without maybe them even knowing it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, a common example that I give of like how I've tried to work with this is like one time I was in session with someone and the song by John Mayer, like Waiting for the World to Change, came in my head. And I was like, huh. And so then I was like, I realized what the message was about was that this client was like waiting for their external circumstances to shift, for their
Mm.
life to feel different, for them to feel different, instead of kind of maybe taking a more proactive approach of like, what can I do? What do I have control over to try to change my life and circumstances? And so it's something like that where I just kind of either asked a question or kind of brought in this reflection, instead of being like, the song that I'm hearing is this, and here's what it
Yeah.
means. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which then too, I feel like, because sometimes in readings, I feel like there's this energy of, I had this literally this past weekend, this woman came to me, and I think in her mind, she was like, this is going to solve all my problems. This is going to, like fix what it is I've been looking for, blah, blah, blah. And like after the reading, I'm like, I'm honestly not sure how, like what state she was in, or if it resonated. Like everything was very on point, and like I could tell that it was like a very powerful reading,
Hmm.
and like just the way the Akashic was like moving with the information that we were asking about.
Hmm.
But I like that instead of just giving it to them, you're inviting them to find it within themselves because I feel like that creates such a stronger impact
Hmm.
when it's not, hey, this is what's coming up, which I think can happen sometimes in psychic readings,
Hmm.
and then the person receiving it isn't using their own gift of intuition. They're just being fed information and information, like giving power away.
Yeah.
What do you find is the significance in helping them actually uncover it?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think this brings in my kind of training in therapy. So there's like different ethical codes, and one of the things is like you don't want to create dependence. So you want to
Mm,
help the client get to a point where they don't need you. Essentially, they have the tools, they have the
yeah.
things, and they're ready to do it on their own. Not that their like life doesn't have issues anymore. It's just they feel more prepared. And so I've taken that approach
Mm-hmm.
in kind of the coaching spiritual space of how can I help this person connect to their intuition? So, doing some really maybe concrete skill building of like, we have to connect to your body to connect to your intuition. That's like a key point. And then how do you get like signs from the universe? How do they come through for you? So, like some of that work. But then what I've also been noticing is like, as I've been doing this work more, I'm getting more questions as messages. So it's almost like the angels and guides are
Mm.
asking me a question to
Mm-hmm.
ask the person of like when you're in this situation or experience, like what's coming up for you. And then I also really encourage people when I'm giving messages or doing angel healing to pay attention to like what's coming up for them. Is like a memory, is it a question, is it a knowing?
Absolutely.
Because again, like helping them, like we're like co-creating this experience together. I'm not like this expert, and I'm also not the one that's actually doing the healing. It's coming through me. So I try to really put it back on them. And when I notice someone like really coming to me like, I need to know this and I feel lost and I need your expertise and I need the angels and guides, I really try to shift it back to them of like, well, how do you know what to do in this situation? So they feel more empowered.
I love that. I that just makes me feel so much better because I think some people's ethical pendulum can be very skewed. And it's always nice to meet someone that's actually aligned in integrity and wanting to help, not create that dependent source of
Hmm.
greed or money or,
Hmm.
yeah, just helping people to heal themselves so they can heal themselves and the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of like what you named of like you, like I feel like you recognize like we hold so much power. Like when we're giving these messages, people come to us, and they often can be in vulnerable situations, like going through
So
really hard
vulnerable.
times in life, and they're thinking, "You're
Yeah.
going to be the answer to my problems. What you tell me is going to be the thing," and kind of being like I don't know that that's the case. Like I can help you, but you're kind of the driver of your own life, and I don't have all the answers.
Yeah, yeah, no one. The answers are in you.
Yeah.
Answers are always in you, boo.
Hmm.
So you talked about intuition really coming through the body, and I feel like this can kind of get skewed when people are starting in spirituality. And there was something I would like to just hear your thoughts on it because I had a mentor tell me one time that, like, yes, there's clairvoyance and there's clairknowing and everything, but actually, the messages aren't necessarily coming through the upper chakras. They're coming through your heart and also your solar
Hmm.
plexus because your solar plexus is your like connection source to the universe. It's your light and it's those gut feelings. And I always found that interesting because usually it's the other way around. Like everyone thinks that it's all like coming in through the top, and it's a very like kind of out of body
Hmm.
feeling. Or so I would love to know first your take on that, and then second how you created safety in your body to then grow your intuition.
Hmm. Yeah, those are two really good questions. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So I guess almost like being kind of called to or focus on the second one actually first,
Yeah,
for whatever
yeah, go for
reason.
it.
And so that's been a huge part of my journey is like to connect to my body. And I deal with that a lot with therapy clients and with coaching clients because trauma really separates us from our body. And then I think it also separates
Yes.
us from our spirit and then therefore our intuition.
Mm.
So it's really hard to get messages. It's really hard to know like how do we feel? What do we need? What do we want? Making decisions, so many things. And that was my experience. I was so like focused on people pleasing and different trauma that I didn't know how to connect to my body. And so I had to do my own work and really in connecting to that. And that's when I started to get more messages. But it's hard because there's a reason why we disconnected from our body, right? It feels unsafe.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. And so when we first start to connect to it, it's like, oh wow, I'm feeling all my anxiety on a whole nother level. Or like I'm feeling these
Yeah.
emotions that I've shut off to. Like maybe numbness looked like
Yep.
depression and that didn't feel good. But now this is like shame and guilt and all the things that I've wanted to avoid. And so it's just kind of like overwhelming at first. And so I try to help people connect to it on small levels of like, okay, let's take a moment right here in session to like, what are you feeling in your body as we're talking about this? And then if it ever feels like they're getting outside of like their window of tolerance of what is like if they want to disconnect from our body, we like take a moment to like breathe and regulate and then go back into the body. So it's like in really small doses.
That's,
But
yeah.
it's so important because our body is the clue to so many things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If you're feeling dis-ease in the body, it's gonna show up as disease in the body. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we don't pay attention to it, then we're missing like signs and intuitive messages and messages about our emotions and what we need. We're not taking care of ourselves then, and we're kind of losing who we are, and that leads to all sorts of depression, anxiety, just feeling numb, feeling like disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from other people. It's kind of, can be the experience of like you're in a room full of people, but you don't feel like you're there or you feel like you're lonely even when you're around other people. Like all that stuff comes through disconnection.
Yeah. Like disassociation,
Hmm.
even kind of is what I, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
continuum. We think of like very severe dissociation of what we call dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder, of what it used to be called. But there's a whole continuum, and being disconnected from our body is on the continuum. I don't have another personality, but I'm not connected to myself in that moment.
And it's scary. I had a friend that experienced disassociation a lot, and to see them in that state, it really, it does. And I feel like it makes sense why it was once called that
Hmm.
term, multiple, yeah, personality, or yeah, because it does seem like, oh, where did they go? It's
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, but then they come back and it's like, okay, I think we're good now.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to witness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all have, I mean, we all have different parts of ourselves. Just people who dissociate to that level, like their parts kind of take over in a sense more so than other people. Um,
Hmm.
and that can be scary for people. And again, like
Yeah.
our body is has been there to like protect us, so dissociation has been a protective mechanism, but any things that we've developed to protect ourselves often gets in the way. It gets in the way of our intuition, it gets in the way of receiving messages, being connected to the world. So it's like it's great that it's protecting you, but now it's also like harming you.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 And what exercises originally brought you back into your body and into who you identify as Sam?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I remember the first step kind of I saw someone in the therapy world that really focuses on somatic work. Um, and what she had me do was notice when I'm disconnected from my body or I'm in a vulnerable state and I put my walls up. She's like, "How do you do that?" Because it was so automatic. And I almost had to like work backwards of like, okay, when I
Yeah.
disconnect or I put up walls and I'm disconnected from my emotions, like what is happening in my body at that moment? And how do I actually do it? Is it like a thought that comes through first and then the walls go up? Is it a feeling and then the disconnection happens? Because then it feels like a choice because it was just happening automatically. So I had to know like how I was doing that to then slow it down so that I could actually like not put my walls up or not disconnect, or if I was disconnected I could come
Yeah.
back. It's all about like feeling like we have a choice. And then the other thing was just spending time naming my emotions, you know, like checking in once a day, be like, how am I feeling today? And how do I know that? Like, where is it showing up in my body?
The labeling of emotions was huge on my journey as well, especially when it came to discerning, okay, I am feeling this emotion, but where did that come from? Is it me? Or is it that person?
Hmm.
Or is it the space? Is it an attachment? Like, yeah, the defining and getting familiar with what that feels like in your body was like huge, huge for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and I imagine like maybe due to like being an empath or clairsentience, right? Where you're just like,
Hmm.
I'm picking up on feelings and like, is this mine or is this someone else's? And that is
Yeah.
also like hard for people to discern. I've had to figure out that for myself of like, usually it's when I'm like shocked to a certain degree where I'm like, I'm very anxious and this doesn't feel appropriate for the situation. Like, what is happening here? I was like, it must be someone else. And even when no one else is
Yeah.
showing signs, I'm like, this has got to be this other person in the room with me because like I might be a little anxious, but like this is a little much.
Yeah, yeah, a little much for my like even keel. And I feel like that's why it's so important to find that like ground level. I always call it like the base zero of your
Hmm.
own body,
Hmm.
because then it's way easier to then discern, yeah, another person's emotions or reactions or even your own, like, oh, I like that just really sent me into a different level. Like I'm no longer in my base zero.
Hmm.
What happened? What occurred? And then to just really learning that ebb and flow, you start to be able to separate yourself, which is the almighty when you're an empath or an intuition, right? Like, or intuitive. Just separating yourself and just watching it. And what's the power and maybe the kind of the psychoanalysis of like watching your thoughts and watching the feelings, and how does the therapy world, I guess, dive into that? Because we hear it in the spirituality realm, I feel like in the space of, or in the verbiage of like neutrality. And yeah, watching the clouds go by as you sit in the field, like if you're in a meditation or something.
Hmm.
But what is that actually allowing for us to dive into when we're doing that?
Yeah, I think it's about being able to respond versus react. So when we are in the situation, in our emotions so much that we can't kind of step back and observe what's happening, we're most likely to be reactive and maybe hurt ourselves, hurt someone else, do something that we're like we regret later. So doing some type of mindfulness practice is really a way to take a step back and be like, well, one, what's happening with me? Because when we're in it, we're often like not always connected fully with ourselves, and then we're like not even aware of like what we need or what's going on with us. Two, it's a way to like be non-judgmental is also like the piece of like watching your thoughts pass by or your emotions, because we label so many things, and that's just how the human brain works, and that helps for survival. It's like if you're in a situation where there's a threat, you have to label it bad quickly because you have to like fight or run away. But it doesn't help us day to day in our day to day life, because we have an emotion, it's like anger, and we're like, oh, that's bad. So I don't want to feel that. I'm going to suppress it instead of being like, oh, I'm going to be curious about this. I'm
Yes.
feeling this. I wonder what that's telling me, instead of going to the judgment right away, because that usually cuts things off.
The curious aspect, I really love that you mentioned that because I've been hearing that a lot. Like, meet a situation with curiosity and compassion rather than that intensity and that judgment and that
Mm-hmm.
like very harsh way. Because, yeah, emotions, they just are.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really working to not only view that in myself, I think it's easier to view that when I feel something, but then to watch someone else
Mm-hmm.
feel all the things, that's when the judgment, it's like, why are you feeling this? Like, well, why are you like, come on, chill
Mm-hmm.
down. But there's so when someone's having a reaction, it's so much more than what is happening in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think through therapy and spirituality, I have also been able to see that, like, okay, they aren't angry at you. Like, this is all the trauma. This is also the past lives that might be
Mm-hmm.
occurring. This is also ancestral. Like, it's such a multi-dimensional experience, and it's definitely not about the like oatmeal or the
Yeah.
the parking spot or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like
Yeah.
it's about so much more.
Yeah. And even if it is about the thing and you feel like their anger is appropriate, when we can observe and not judge, we can be regulated in ourselves and hear what they have to say. When we become dysregulated or we go into a shame place, then we're just focused on like me, and we're not like we can't hear the other person. We can't meet them with compassion. We can't meet them and say like, you're right. Like that wasn't okay that I said that. I'm really sorry. What can I do to, make it better in the future? We're focused on, well, I didn't mean that, and I'm a good person. Can you forgive me? And it just kind of continues to harm the person. So really mindfulness practice does so much of like being in your body, being curious, non-judgmental, and being able to stay regulated when something comes up that you're like, I don't know if I really like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's I'm taking that in because I have someone in my life right now that I feel like they are really working through this, and I'm trying to meet them with like just a lot of patience and a lot of groundedness
Mm-hmm.
and just staying. But it's that like human condition where like someone reacts in a certain energy, you match it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I need to just stay where I am and maybe not match it because when I match it, it's not good.
It's
Yeah.
hard though, especially if like you're very intuitive and you feel things really strongly, and it's so easy to
Yeah.
mesh your energy with someone else. Like I think almost like lifelong work of especially intuitives and like empaths and highly sensitive people is like, how do I not engage in codependent stuff? How do I remember
Yeah.
like I came to this to be a human and separate, even though our souls are connected, but I decided to be a separate entity here. So how can I stay in myself while being there for the other person? And that can be super challenging.
Absolutely. In codependency, I would love for you to just describe this as easy and digestible as possible because I feel like that gets thrown around all the time. And I feel like I've heard so many definitions that I'm not even sure what it is or if it's occurring. And I feel like a lot of people with these certain terms, they get kind of just how the human language happens, right? You share it to someone and then telephone happens and then it's like this like narcissism I
Yeah.
think is another term that just gets thrown around and it's like
Hmm.
wait guys
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
I don't think like they might sure have qualities, but like they are not the term definition of, yeah.
Yeah.
So what is codependency
Mhm.
in your lens?
Yeah, I would say all this kind of stuff, think of it as always on a continuum, whether codependency, narcissism, um, ADHD, just anything that like people have come into like the general lexicon and language in society and people are like slapping labels everywhere. Like everything's a continuum.
Mm.
So really severe codependency looks like we've lost our sense of self. uh,
Mm.
that what someone else is feeling, I must have to feel then. What I'm feeling, you absolutely have to be feeling. So if I'm upset about something, that means that you need to be upset about something. If you're not, I don't understand why, and I'm that upsets me. If someone's like not having a good day, then I'm not having a good day. So it's hard to really keep that separate. I've kind of used like a imagery metaphor with clients of like we all have our own pools we're swimming in. Codependency is like you're swimming in the same pool. You're like, yeah, all what we're feeling is like it's the same. Our hobbies, our interests, same. We think the same, and there's just really hard to just have a separate self, and it feels even threatening to have a separate self to say, you know what, I don't actually want to do what you want to do, or I'm actually not feeling what you're feeling, and then it can also be a loss of like, or it leads to people pleasing that like I need to manage this other person's behavior. It shows up a lot with like mental
Yeah.
health and substance abuse, like the most common examples of like I need to save this person, I need to micromanage their life instead of focusing on like what do I need for myself, regardless of this person changes.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. That really helps me to visualize it. And two, with impasse, that's a fine line. That is a very fine line.
Mhm.
Because I've noticed this pattern within myself that still occurs where as a young kid, I would feel so strongly, and even now, I feel so strongly what someone else is feeling. So when they start to shift into something that might be just detrimental to the happy energies, or they start to go into shame or guilt, like like subconsciously I'm like, oh, I need to lift them up. I
Mhm.
need to like hold them or like just let them know that they aren't alone or like
Mhm.
I immediately go into like let's fix this because I don't like feeling that way. And but I just catch myself doing it all the time and I'm like, shoot, I did it again and I don't know if it's like a negative thing or just something to witness, or yeah, because it's not that I mean, it doesn't feel good in my body, right? But it's that like boundary of like
Mhm.
it's okay if it doesn't feel good in mine, but like let them have their experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great example, and I've definitely kind of been working through that and have worked through that, especially with like my wife, right? Like our closest relationships, our friends, our family, our
Yeah,
partners, like that's
yeah.
where it tends to show up a lot and really challenges us because usually
Mm-hmm.
codependency comes from childhood, again, our closest relationships. And if we are empaths and like highly intuitive, I feel like it's just the perfect storm to have us live in codependent relationships. And so you kind of named it of like what to do is like trying to be okay with how you're feeling and regulate yourself so you allow the person to have their own experience because it almost is
Mm.
like harmful to the other person, and I'll give an example from my life is I've struggled a lot with other people's anger because of my experiences from
Yeah.
the past and childhood and just different things that I experienced. So when someone, and I don't like people being angry with me, it doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't feel good at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want this to be okay. And so when someone would get angry with me, like my wife, I would then try to like we had to talk about it. Like I need you to like not be
Yes.
angry with me. How can I make it better? And it would just be overwhelming and she's someone that like needs time to like think about it and process. And so I was like cutting into that time for her and I was like taking that
Mm.
away and almost making I was making it about myself of like I'm anxious and dysregulated because you're angry with me and I can't handle that. So I need you to
Mm.
stop being angry so I feel better. And instead, and we kind of worked
I
this
feel
and
called out.
yeah, it's such a common thing. So I totally get
Yeah.
it. And like in couples therapy, like our couples therapist in the past, she like called me out on this and I was like, this is so true. Like this is my issue. And so I had to learn to like regulate, especially that younger version that was like, this is scary because like what's gonna happen? And like and
Hmm.
the shame that was coming up of like, oh, I'm a bad person because she's angry with me. I must have done something. And so I had to just like, we would take time apart. I would regulate that anxious part, give her time to process, and then we'd come back together. So then I could allow her to be upset with something that I did, which might have been actually really valid. Like maybe I did do something and she had every right to be angry about it.
I love that example. That helps me understand a lot about that thing that I've noticed within myself too. And too, yeah, it's just so simple. Like when someone's upset, or you feel it immediately. Like
Hmm.
maybe it just comes out of your mouth, and then you feel the switch, and you're like, oh shit, I said something. Like I need to let's backtrack. Like actually, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But then you're like, it's almost like manipulative
Hmm.
a little bit.
That's what it
Like
can
you're
feel like.
manipulating.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not like the intent, you know, right? And so I work with so
No.
many people
Yeah.
where they're like they're good intent, but it's really coming from like I feel shame, I feel guilt, I feel anxious, and I hate this because it's uncomfortable, which it's
Hmm.
supposed to feel uncomfortable. Like guilt is there to like get us to make amends. If it wasn't uncomfortable, we would just hurt people
Yeah.
and be like, I don't really care. But we have to
That's
sit
so
with the
true.
discomfort and not take away the other person's experience because yeah, then it to the other person it feels manipulative, even that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. We're just empaths. We're just sensitive souls and
Yeah.
like chameleons almost. Like
Yes.
yeah, that like kind of Leo energy where you can like just put on a different mask for any different
Hmm.
environment almost.
Yeah, and I am
Um,
a sun, moon, and rising Cancer sign, and so like I am very
Whoa.
like chameleon
Mutable.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that has been
Very
such a
mutable.
struggle, and I feel energy shifts like immediately before even the other person. That's been a challenge in my life of like the other person is unaware that their energy has shifted and that something is upsetting them,
Yes.
but I'm picking up on this and I want to fix it because I don't like how it feels, but they're not even aware of it, and I don't want to like they need to come to awareness themselves. So like that has been a challenge too, to be like, oh, something has shifted, I don't know what it's about, or I have an idea, but they're not even acknowledging it.
Yeah, they aren't even, yeah, fully aware
Hmm.
that it's occurring within their own body. I think that is almost it can feel like a burden, but I think it is beautiful because then you just get to witness the unfolding. But when you are like very intuitive and spot on,
Hmm.
it can be like a okay, I know exactly why this is occurring, and then they're like you don't want to give them that story or project or
Hmm.
and then it's just like you have this energy. Like I have a family member sometimes where I'm like, you're feeling this way because you keep doing it to yourself. Like, what are you doing? And
Hmm.
like it can be so frustrating,
Hmm.
but I just it's not mine, so I have to just step back and
Yeah. It's hard though, and I think my therapy experience has helped me do that of like I've just
mm,
witnessed so much of when other people come to their own realization and epiphanies, it's so much more powerful, impactful, and it lasts longer than if I just give them that little nugget of insight. Sometimes I do that, but a lot of times I'm trying to through questions that I ask, through comments that I make, like helping them try to come to that themselves. I think that just feels better for people too, but it's really hard to do that, especially when I'm not in my therapy self, like, and I just want to tell someone something, but I heard this piece of advice from my mentor and I have always held on to it of like you don't want to steal other people's life lessons, and I've really like thought
mm,
about that a lot of like, okay, it's not my job to fix this.
mm,
One, that's a truth. Second is like if I fix this for them and I tell them this, like I've stolen some type of life lesson that they're trying to work through in this life, and that's not fair to them or their soul.
yeah, yeah, that they need to come to that full awareness through the full scope of what it was that they were meant to experience.
Hmm.
How do you deal with that kind of maybe frustrative energy when you are working with a client? And the coaches that may be listening to this, it's like I keep guiding them, I keep sharing them, and they just aren't getting it. Like,
Hmm.
what do you do when you feel like you're just going in circles with someone?
Well, one thing that I learned very early on, I think even in grad school, was like if you're feeling that frustrated, you're probably working harder than the client. And it's time for you to take a step
Mm.
back because you never want to work harder than your client for a number of reasons. You're going to burn yourself out. Then the client is
Yeah.
getting into a almost like a learned helplessness place. And that might be something that they struggle with in their life of like maybe they've learned to survive by getting other people to do stuff for them. And so
Mm.
we don't want to continue to play into that. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is like, are we wanting something for the client that maybe they're not wanting for themselves? And maybe we think they need to be somewhere, we think they have to have a certain goal, but maybe one, they're not ready, or two, that isn't what they want for themselves. So like when I'm in that frustrated place, I'm always like, okay, something's happening here. Let me take a step back. Is this my stuff? Like, am I having some type of countertransference where it's bringing up my personal stuff? Is this like, I need to check in and be like, what does this person want? And I just name it like, I feel like we're kind of stuck here and we might be going in circles. Like, do you feel that? Because a number of times when I name that with the client, they're like, I kind of feel that too. And I don't like that either.
Oh,
And they're like, I don't
yeah.
really know what to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I like how you mentioned you kind of mentioned it with the guilt and just now again that certain emotions are temple bells for us. They are guiding us to have that expanded awareness. Like we're not just feeling anger or sorrow or yeah, guilt for no reason. It's an emotion that then is like directing the next
Mm-hmm.
step to further inquiry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Every emotion serves a purpose, even ones that we don't like because they feel unpleasant. Like even shame.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't think shame has a purpose. And I would say, I think it does. I think at a neutral level, I mean, it makes us feel bad about ourselves, but that's not the point of it. The point is to let us know of like we've stepped outside of some community standard and we want to see like, do I want to fix things to be in line with that community standard, like telling the truth or something, or does it not align with my values and I want to say, forget the community standard, I'm going to live my life the way that feels best for me. But everything has a purpose, but when we focus on love, like I don't like this emotion, I want it to go away, then we just don't listen and then we don't use it really effectively.
Yeah, and then it gets stuck in the body
Yeah,
everywhere.
and causes all sorts of mental health
All
stuff,
sorts of
physical
bad things.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so with all of this mindfulness and learning how to really do a deep dive into what you are experiencing and what the other and then the separation, I feel like this is at its core reparenting yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just taking it to that deeper level and taking the care for yourself in every moment. And I would love to hear like what you consider is reparenting and then how it has helped you through just healing, even I know with some gender identity experiences that you've had, has reparenting played a role in that as well?
Yeah. So reparenting really is like we all have these parts in our life in different ages where maybe we went through something particularly hard or that age is carrying a lot. Usually call them like burdens. And when those parts of ourselves, the younger parts, get triggered, that's when we have like big behavior. So if you've ever felt like you've almost like regressed of like that felt like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum or that feel like very like teenagey angst kind of defiance, like that might
Yep.
be a younger part of yourself showing up in that moment and having a reaction to it. Because I believe like our healthy adult selves or our soul or our true self is compassionate and curious and not reactive in those ways. So when we get reactive, it's like, oh, that's a younger part or a different part of ourselves. And so again, this is where those signs come up of like when I have a certain feeling in my body or emotion or thought or behavior, I'm like, oh, something's happening. Let me just like
Yeah.
pause, take a step back and be like, what's going on with myself? And then even sometimes I try to figure out the age of it. And this is kind of where intuitive stuff comes in for me. Sometimes I like see it's like a very like
Yeah.
young part, and I see that it's a college age part. And then I kind of in my mind even just kind of sit with this version of myself and kind of have a conversation of like, what's going on? What do you need? What are you feeling? And just validate it before I try to fix it. Because I feel like we just rationalize it of like, oh, it's stupid to get upset about this. Like, there's no reason to get angry. And what that younger part needs is like, it's okay to be feeling angry right now or scared. Like, I understand. It's not stupid. It's just like, that's how you're feeling. And maybe giving that part like a hug in my mind or maybe saying some validation like statements and then that part tends to calm down and then we kind of know when it's done when that part is like when it's a younger version it's like okay can I go play now like that's usually how my younger part is like done with this it's like I'm done with this
Yeah.
conversation or like a teenage part is like I'm good can we like I'm done with this conversation right and then
Yeah.
and then I feel regulated in my body.
Yeah.
Hmm.
For me, I often get this like visual of like as I'm hugging them, they
Hmm.
kind of come back into the hole, and that
Hmm.
hole is like my heart space in my chest.
Hmm.
They're kind of like ready and they come back into that like center space.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned that sometimes it's just like, okay, I'm good. Because I also have gotten that too. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go frolic. It's
Yeah.
like right on. Sounds good. Sounds
Hmm.
good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
how
love
did
that.
this go ahead?
No, I love that like the imagery of coming in like that's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And how did this reparenting yourself help with that part of you that may have felt left out or just not understandable when you were younger,
Hmm.
and then society was trying to tell you something and you felt a different way? I
Hmm.
would love to hear about that.
Yeah. This is something that has like been an ongoing thing and like still is. I just had a dream this past week that's like it's still something I'm working through. Like the dream is always the same. It's like I'm back in a school setting, I'm back with my peers, and somehow I feel on the outside, or I'm trying to seek their approval or acceptance. And
Yeah.
sometimes it shows up in a way where it's like I've come a long ways, and other times it feels like we're back in the same issue again and again. And I can get frustrated with myself. And this is where it's helpful to have, even as a healer, like my therapist or a coach or
Yeah.
something, to be,
Community.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
friends are like, well, it's okay. Like this is a work in progress. You've come a long ways. Like, maybe it's a younger part of yourself, like that needs some love. And so in these moments where I feel like that part is being triggered of like I feel different, I feel othered, I feel shame, I feel like I don't belong here. I try to really sit with that younger part and have a conversation. And I think I've had to do longer term work with that part or more intensive where I go back to a time and place and we do like a session around that time and place around those experiences. And then it's easier to kind of like check in with that part and do like healing work ongoing. Because, yeah, that was a huge theme of my childhood between my sexuality and gender, which I didn't know when I was super little. I was just like, and
Yeah.
intuitive. I was like, I just feel different. I feel like I don't belong here, and I feel out of place, but I don't know why. And that part tends to come up in a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm. And for someone that might also be experiencing that, what would you say is the best way that they can show up for themselves when they feel othered or different, or that they are being told to fit in this box, but they're wanting to break through it? What is the best advice that you would have?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different things. One is to, sit again with those younger parts and like validate that experience first of like,
Yeah.
it's hard to feel this way and kind of sit with the feelings that are coming up. Then kind of moving into like how much is this a safety issue? Like do I have to kind of bend and mold because in this situation I do have to fit in for safety? And when is it where I feel unsafe but I'm actually not unsafe? And that can be hard to tell. Like
Mm.
is this an actual threat or is this a perceived
Yeah.
threat because of past experiences?
Past experience.
Um
Mm-hmm.
and then also how much do we want to like self abandon ourselves and self sacrifice? Because there really becomes this feeling of feeling hollow and like empty when we've just like fully abandoned who we are just to like fit in and please others. And that doesn't feel good to us or our soul. And that could, often leads to like depression and things like that. And when we can really embody our truth and we're surrounded by supportive people, almost like as a protective mechanism, that feels so much more alive and like freeing and grounded. And sometimes we have to come back to that remembering of like, it feels so much better to live our truth than to abandon ourselves all the time.
Yeah. And I saw recently, like authenticity, you'd think love is the highest frequency, but actually authenticity is
Mm-hmm.
the highest frequency. And
Mm-hmm.
usually when I am working with people that feel as though they haven't been authentic, I invite them to just hold the knowing that when you start to vibrate in your own authenticity, and you start to attract that, and you
Mm-hmm.
start to attract other spaces or people or yeah, places, experiences that hold that same frequency. And so you might feel alone right now, but there's so much available for you when you actually start living your truth.
Yeah, and I think that is such a common like trap to fall into when you've been othered, is to think that there's no one else like you.
Exactly.
And in a way, like we are unique, right? There's no one exactly like you, but there are
Yeah.
other people that have qualities or identities or experiences or interests that are like you. And it feels so great to like be in those spaces. You know, like when I've been exploring this intuitive stuff and feeling like, oh my gosh, are people going to think that I'm crazy or like I've lost my mind or just like that I'm just too weird now. But then as I've really just been like, this is who I am, I have attracted and found these spaces where like other people we're speaking the same language, right? Yeah, like this, like for
Yep.
example, where it's just
Yep.
like we can vibe and it's like I don't feel weird. Like I feel seen and
Yeah.
that feels really good.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I would love to kind of move in that direction of channeling the angels
Hmm.
because I love this. And of course, when I see a channeler, like especially putting themselves out online, I'm like, yes, go fan. Like we need more conscious content,
Hmm.
and we need these messages. Like we all are divine channels, and it is really nice to just create and see that, oh yes, I'm not the only one that like speaks to aliens or that yeah
Hmm.
gets messages from angels. And I would love to know how you came into that, and specifically, are you channeling an angelic frequency or is it like a collective? Because I have like an Octurian collective. I have these different groups that reach out. One presented the other night and they were like, hello, Marissa, you are meant to channel us. Just like, I was just like, okay, hey guys. Like, it was like an ancient Pleiadian group
Mm.
that came through. But I would just love to hear about your experience, how it
Hmm.
started, and what it is now, and how
Hmm.
people can find those messages.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, that's so cool. I have like a spiritual friend too, where like for the first time, like some other group is coming in and trying to connect, and she's like, "This is new. Like, what do I do with this?" And like, I haven't had that yet, but I'm like, I am open to that. So if groups want to
Yeah.
contact me, right now it's just kind of the angels in general and kind of that frequency. And so I just kind of tune
Okay.
into almost like the group of the main, like 12 or whatever it is, archangels. Sometimes
Archangels.
right
Yeah.
before I about to channel, because I do it live, like record myself channeling live, which took me a while to get to that point. Because I was like, what if no messages come through? Or what if this doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense? Or, but now I feel more comfortable. But sometimes when I'm setting up and I'm like grounding and kind of opening my intuitive senses, one specific archangel comes through and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's work together. And yeah, I channel live on like TikTok and YouTube and then Instagram because you can't have long form. I do like a summary for those that like I
Yeah.
still want to get the messages out there each week, and I think it's a great way to just kind of start the week off and like just see like what to be thinking about. And it's interesting, like there's a lot of like themes that like come through that sometimes when I'm channeling a message, I'm like, didn't we already just do this one? Like, wasn't there something like this like a month ago?
Yep.
But maybe it's like a different
Yep.
spin on it. And so sometimes I like get in my head of like when people see these messages, they're like, Sam already did that, but it's like this is
Yeah.
what's coming through.
Absolutely. I do the monthly energy updates,
Hmm.
and I have the same thing happen. I'm like, am I just making this up? Because like I already talked about this, but then it's like, no, no, like it needs to be heard in a different
Hmm.
way. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like the things that come through a lot, even with sessions, like when I'm doing Akashic record readings or intuitive sessions, is like self-love and self-compassion. It almost sounds like a lot of times when I deliver the messages, it feels so corny. And so I'm like, I hope this person realizes like this is a channel message. Like I'm just not making it up and just trying to throw in some fluff of like it's so common for self-love to be a theme, balance to be a theme, authenticity. Those are kind of like some main themes that come through with like the angels and guides.
I definitely feel that, and I love that you mentioned that because I was going to ask if there are like common themes when you are going into the Akashic records,
Hmm.
but you just answered it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
self-love. And I do believe if there's one thing that we could all do, like love ourselves more, I think that would change the world in so many ways because so much of our things that we do that are hurtful to ourselves and other comes out of such like wounded places. And if we love ourselves more, we have less shame, we are less reactive, we are more loving, compassionate to ourselves and others, and it changes the interactions.
It's really all so innocent.
Hmm.
It's all so innocent, and that was something that shifted me. It's like when you talk to someone speak to their highest frequency, first of all, but also see the child within them and
Mm-hmm.
see, like, how would you talk to this child who is throwing a fit or
Mm-hmm.
who's being a little aggressive right now? Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't judge or like throw a fit back to a
Mm-hmm.
child, right? You would just hold them and you'd listen and
Mm-hmm.
you'd get down to their level.
Yeah. And which doesn't mean I'm a big fan of like in therapy speak, we call it like both and, right? It's not like either or, but like both and in terms of do that and remember you get to have boundaries. You know, because I think some people
Mm-hmm.
think like I need to just be loving and give this person all the love and compassion, but it's like, but
Totally.
it doesn't mean that
Totally.
they get to like mistreat you. You get to still say like, I love you and I will be here for you, but like you can't talk to me like that. Or like it's not
Mm-hmm.
okay when you treat me like that. And I think that's especially hard with people that are so loving and also like intuitives. It's like I say like I'm a bleeding heart. Like my emotions are just so out there, and I have gotten in the past myself into so many situations where I see their highest self, I see their potential. It's so easy for me to do that, but I forget of like, but that's not them right now in this human form and how they're behaving, and I need to
Mm.
interact with them in a way from this place while keeping that like higher self in mind.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. I that explains it even deeper, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, for myself and hopefully others. Yeah, yeah. Definitely don't let yourself get thrown around. Like, yes, still have firm boundaries, but keep that vision in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with one more kind of question to dive into, how did you overcome putting yourself out there? Because you had a strong, feeling like I need to share this. This is information that needs to be put out there. And putting yourself in that light, it is a very vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
state. And like we talked about earlier, with the comment that was mentioned and
Mm-hmm.
your self-worth and everything, what has kind of kept you going, and how did you overcome, just this might be weird but I'm gonna do it anyways? Like, what got you to that place?
Yeah, probably like a few different things over the course of time. Like before I decided to be public on social media and like go into this business, I like never really posted on social media. I was very much like I'm in my real life, whatever that means. But I'm in
Yeah.
my like off-screen life and I wouldn't really scroll through social media. I wouldn't really engage. I wouldn't post. And then I did this business and it kind of felt like one part of the marketing, but also I wanted to be someone where people could see me and like resonate with my story and feel less alone because that's how some other people have been for me. Like when I'm struggling and I go to their page and they say something and I'm like, I feel seen. I feel like I'm not alone in this experience. And so I kind of wanted to, if I could do that for people, especially during this time in America, I really wanted to make sure that like I wasn't gonna hide. But it was hard because when I started putting myself out there, I had a real fear of being visible. In my childhood, when I was visible, that meant like I had a target on my back and I was either like picked on or try to be brought down. And I was just like, I'm just trying to be
Yeah.
myself. And that was coming up a lot. I had to do a lot of deeper healing, spiritual, intuitive work around that. And then just kind of expose myself to that. So when I first would post, I would have like vulnerability for like a day after that. I'd be like, oh my God, was that stupid? Should I have done that? Like, what are people going to think? Or do they think I'm
Yeah.
weird? And now it's like I can post it and I don't do that spiral, but it's taken a long time.
Yeah.
And then,
Exposure therapy.
yeah, really. And then again, having like my community and support system where I can just say, like, oh my gosh, I posted this and like this is how I felt, or I posted this and someone said this like really harsh comment, like this is what the experience was like. And after I had that experience of posting about that gender, that was the first time I was like really vulnerable about that, and then I just kind of got torn up a little bit in the comments. I like wanted to hide for like a whole week. Like I really struggled that week and I was like, I don't know that I want to be this vulnerable. But then I was just like, but I don't want other people to take away my power and who I am. And like, I don't want to hide just because
Yep.
there's other people that are going to do that because other people are going to celebrate me and also kind of
Yeah.
need that connection. So that's what I keep in my
Mm.
mind of like that queer kid in a rural community who doesn't have kind of like other people to see, like maybe they'll come across my page, or an intuitive who's going through their spiritual awakening process and they're like, am I just nuts? And they can come across my page and be like, okay, I'm not alone. I try to keep those
Good.
people in mind of like that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm doing it for, and also because since I was little I felt like I'm here for a bigger purpose, and so I just remind myself of those moments when it's hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that. It's always good to keep that. Yeah, what's the end goal? What's the why?
Hmm.
And just keep coming back to that at all times. That's a similar reason I had really bad mental health in high school, and YouTube was like my escape. And the funny videos, the like little communities on YouTube with different YouTubers, and just it was really my safe haven. And when I felt like I had no one, at least I had this YouTuber that I could watch and feel a part of something. And that's, yeah, that's what took me on this whole journey of content creation. And I'm so grateful that we get to be those safe spaces for
Hmm.
the people, our younger selves, and
Yeah,
also the people who are
yeah.
experiencing similar.
And I
Yeah.
would say like the other piece that I've noticed is the more that I've put my story out there is like the more that I own it. I own the narrative.
Mm.
I get to like say what happened to me, and it feels less threatening if someone were to say something negative about my story, because it's like
Yeah.
I'm okay with my story. Like this
Yeah.
is what happened to me, and these are the things that I've struggled with, and if you have a problem with it, that probably says like there's maybe some unhealed stuff in you to kind of work through. But it took me a long time to do that. I would like start to, again, layers, share certain parts of my story in little bits, and now I'm just trying to really own it. And it has really felt like empowering and embodying and really grounding.
Yeah, yeah. What came forward when you were saying that was, I'm not afraid to be this person. I get to be this person.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, I get to hold that. I get to be the chick that channels aliens. Who cares? You know, like that's been like my hardest thing is like taking it in, like sure, Reiki healing and energy healing, channeling, like I can do that. The alien part is the one that in the light language, I still am feeling very vulnerable about sharing on like Instagram, on TikTok and like YouTube. It's totally cool, but like the place where a lot of people that know me in real
Hmm.
life or have
Hmm.
known me or their parents know my parents. Like it's just this like yeah, it can be very sticky, but I'm grateful for your advice and what you shared.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's great that you can kind of still own your story. And I imagine like years from now you'll look back and you'll think, wow, I can't believe that I was ever like afraid to do that, because now I'm just like super owning it, right? Like we always keep evolving, and we think like,
Yeah.
well, I can't get even any more comfortable. Like I'm pretty comfortable with my story. And then years go by and you're like, wow, I'm even more comfortable with my story.
Deeper into self, deeper
Hmm.
into our passion and purpose.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, beautiful. I think that's a great place to wrap it in. And thank you so much again. I feel like I've received so much wisdom from this and just a deeper understanding of how to show up for myself and all of the Marissas that are present with me in this now moment. And I just really appreciate the work that you're doing and the integrity that you hold and just you and other like-minded individuals are just shifting humanity, and it feels so good to be connected.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and just this opportunity to chat about really cool stuff. And you're part of that group, right? The light workers that are
Yes.
shifting things. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I hope that you can feel proud of that, and even like having people on your podcast to like share what needs to be shared. Before I kind
Yes.
of stepped into this episode, I was like, whoever's around spirits, like just whatever needs to be spoken, have it be spoken. Whatever needs to be shared, be shared. And so it's great that you have this platform to share all these things.
Yeah, absolutely grateful for it too. Um, so you kind of mentioned earlier, but just to remind people, where can they find you? Where can they connect? And then what services do you have? Any big things coming up or
Hmm.
things that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So as we've talked about a lot, I'm on social media. And
Yes.
so Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the same handles, Sam Intuitive Coach. My website is samintuitivecoach.com. And I do individual sessions with Akashic Records, intuitive messaging, ongoing coaching with people. I have a group program that I hope to launch in the fall around stepping into your authentic self. So that's all on my website.
Oh,
I love relational sessions. Those are so much fun when you bring like two people together and you're like, what's your soul connection? What's past lives that you lived together? Those are just a blast. Um, and I'm doing a podcast that I hope to launch this month in May, where I do live sessions, half-hour sessions, individual and relational, so people can see
That's
like,
so fun.
yeah, what is it like? And I also really hope that again people can listen to it if they're like feeling scared to like reach out for a session, or they feel isolated, that they can listen to these sessions and know that they're not alone, and whether it's the grieving process or like people pleasing or whatever the things that are coming up in these sessions, I feel like are so relatable. So that's something that I'm super excited about.
Absolutely. If you ever need a guest, I'm all for it.
Yeah, come on in. I love working with intuitives because we so are co-creating the space. Like when I'm giving
Oh, yeah.
messages, they're like, when you were saying that, this is what was coming for me. And it's just like, it's so much fun.
Those are the best spaces. Yeah, I do a monthly call with Sun Psychic Jean, and she's a psychic in Maryland, and that's like the same thing. It's like we're both receiving and
Hmm.
activating each other. It's so fun to.
Hmm.
It's like such a fun session and like live call to have.
Hmm.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, and then everyone, you know where to find my stuff. I do guided meditations on YouTube's if you're looking to do that, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. But thank you so much, Sam,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
reach out.
Hmm.
Reach out, connect with us, and much love to you all.